welcome to You Can't Make This Shit Up. We are your hosts, David Washington. I'm Kellen Clark. We are your political innovators here in Central Florida. But today we're talking about a statewide problem, beginning with citizen initiatives.
Exactly, Kellen. And the issue is this there will be several initiatives on the Florida ballot in 2024, general election 2024, November. And what the issue is here in Florida, the Supreme Court has ruled that a ballot initiative needs to be single issue only. And so when and it's a long, convoluted process, which the Republicans made even more convoluted in the last legislative session to put a measure on the ballot. In this particular argument, as we discuss abortion appearing on the November 2024 ballot, the Florida Supreme Court must review the language of the particular initiative. And when they do that, they prescribe certain what is it codes or particular restrictions in regards to how that language on that particular initiative needs to appear.
Yeah, the point is that you don't want a loaded, like kind of like a loaded questions kind of deal. You don't want to have something that appears one way on the surface, but underneath has some more sinister motive, or you don't want something on the ballot that is two starkly different issues. That what with varying levels of popularity. On paper, it all makes sense.
Right.
And while it is more difficult now, at the same time, as population grows, you don't want too much clogging up the system, which makes sense. The problem that I see is strictly within that single issue mandate. And because when they were because the Florida, they goes to the courts, and the Supreme Court of Florida can strike down them if they don't comply. One that they struck down was about the decriminalization of recreational marijuana.
Correct.
And they said that was multiple things, because not only does it decriminalize it, but because you decriminalize it, that also allows it to be commercialized. That means it is now two things. That it only does one thing, decriminalization, which can in turn lead to other things. It's a chain reaction. Every
Right.
act, leads to multiple things. I mean, under this logic, with enough creativity, you can probably strike down any of them. I mean, it's like, a ballot could go up saying, we're going to change the name from Florida to DeSantis land. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow down there. That affects the maps. That changes two things. With enough creativity, that was a dumb example that was made for being dumb for the sake of being dumb. But the marijuana one was real. And what that shows is that if it can cause something on a chain reaction, then that can count as multiple things according to the court. That is the precedent that they set, which means now discretion plays a much bigger part. Like, discretion on the issue itself plays a much larger part than it did before.
Right. Another particular example was the ballot initiative, I believe, Amendment 4, back in 2020, that gave returned citizens, ex-felons, returned citizens, their voting rights back once they completed their terms. Well, the initiative did not address what completing their terms meant. Common sense will say, they served their time in jail,
Probably.
their release, they're back into society and contributing to their welfare. Well, the legislature said, not so fast. Their terms are not complete because there are court fees. There are other fees that are associated with their crime and their sentence and their rehabilitation that need to be resolved before their term is complete. And so there's been a section, not a section, a group of returned citizens who were allowed to re-register to vote, and then that was cut off. because the Republican legislature passed legislation, and the Supreme Court said, the language is not clear. There were too many issues associated with that ballot initiative that it was not clear to address those other issues brought up by the Republicans of completing their terms
Yeah,
and fees,
and
things like
it's
that.
important to sort out ambiguity by just
You're right.
picking something. And I mean, no matter which way you slice it, it's not going to be perfect. I am happy that they went out of the way to just remove all ambiguity, say you need to serve your time and pay your fees, and then you're fine. I mean, at least now there's no more confusion. And I'm guessing for many, that's how this whole action came to be in the first place. The single issue. Trying to narrow the scope and tailor it more specifically. And that was what I thought when I first read it. We're just we're going to essentially trim down the quantity, seeking only stuff that is written well. But 4 of the 9 this year have been struck down, and unfortunately, the patterns have not been consistent with it. It's the all the ones that got struck down pretty much all the ones that got shut down were exclusively opposed by Republicans and were far more supported by the more liberal leaning side of the population, which has, I think, called the many that maybe they're using discretion, especially with that marijuana one, because of
Right,
how
right.
strange that reason one. Because narrow tailoring is one thing, but an act that can do one single thing and not cause anything else to happen subsequently, even if it's just a natural consequence that voters would be aware of. I mean, anybody voting, for legalization of marijuana will also do so under the assumption that it's going to be commercialized eventually. If it's a product, it will be commercialized. They'll sell you air one
Right.
day.
And
They
thus
sell you
the
water in bottles, okay?
the Republican, the Florida Supreme Court's reaction and their statement to that effect is that, okay, now this particular ballot initiative does not become a single issue initiative. It's multiple issues, which makes this ballot initiative invalid. And the ACLU is saying, wait a second here. The judges have a great deal of discretion in determining what is valid, what is a single issue initiative, what is not. And there's some that's there's there's something wrong with that. And like you said, 4 or 5 out of the 9 recent ballot initiatives that was reviewed by the Florida Supreme Court have been turned down. And it looks like if the abortion initiative, ballot initiative, does not meet the single issue initiative protocol, that too could be turned back. And despite the fact that supporters of the abortion ballot initiative have about maybe 500,000 signatures required, ballot signatures.
Mm.
And so they have to get to 900,000. So, you know, this particular ballot initiative may not even see the light of day on the
Yeah,
ballot.
it may not, and not everything needs to become about initiative. But for me, what I saw in the decisions to strike down was and I'm gonna emphasize marijuana one because I feel like it was definitely the worst written one. The other ones I think made way more sense, but what I saw in it was just a lack of trust in the people of Florida. That the people of Florida are too dumb to realize that if you decriminalize something, it can be a commodity. In other news, David, the sky is blue, grass is green. You
Oh my
know,
God.
man, maybe I overestimated him. And we don't and that I think to me is incredible. It is an incredibly poor mindset to go through. Obviously, a full we don't need direct democracy on a federal level. We have the state and local levels so that the citizens can decide for themselves, because people in Florida are more likely to be more like-minded than the entire nation at once. But now we don't even get that.
I think this is another level of government preemption that we saw in this past legislative cycle that the Republican led legislature, led by Governor DeSantis, promoted and passed a number of preemption bills. And now the Supreme Court, in their advocacy, is doing the same with ballot initiatives, taking a very strict view into these single subject rule
Re-
protocols.
and rigidity is rarely a symptom of long-term, long-lasting government. One of the reasons we changed our government so quickly in the United States from the Articles of Confederation was because it was rigid. Everything was tailored so narrowly, that it was impossible for it to adapt to, any issues. And obviously, this is nowhere near on that level. But we've seen a lot of things. It's harder to charge people with bribery now because we've narrowed that definition and narrowed the requirements so specific. And now it's going to be harder in our state to, for the citizens to get things that they want passed. It's now much more in the hands of your representatives, not in the voters' hands anymore. And I mean, that's just sad. Like, that's like, I don't think there's any other word for it. Taking away, the people of the state's ability, not taking away, but restricting the people of the state's ability to decide on tough decisions for themselves, saying that because, if an issue is too complicated, it can't be in the hands of voters. It feels it's you about my feelings,
As
as Joel would say, but
Republicans
it's insulting.
are here to help and to govern here in Florida with a iron fist, as that great Democrat from California once said. I'm here from the government and I'm here to help.
Oh, Reagan. but but David, we in America experience more and more threats on our rights, and it's not just Republicans. It's more notable in Florida right now because they're more thoroughly in power. But remember when the Restrict Act was supposed to pass by a landslide until everybody made a huge stink about it because
Yes.
it was a garbage piece of trash that came from Democrats
Right.
initially,
Yes, that's true.
and it even had support for the president. However, despite overwhelming support, the sequel to the Patriot Act didn't end up making it because enough of the people working on it, eventually enough negative attention was on
Mhm.
it
The
that
Patriot Act 1 and Patriot Act 2 is the end of our democracy, according
Patriot, yeah,
to in my belief. But go ahead.
it was something that both sides, in
Sure.
media, social media,
Sure.
people not in government recognized as a threat to their rights.
Mhm.
It was a threat to our right to privacy. It was a threat to, our right to our own technology because the government had much easier time confiscating it,
Mhm.
access to our data,
Mhm.
all of that, your freedom to develop for the web. And enough outrage was made around it that Congress realized that if they vote for it, their reelection campaign could be in danger,
Right. And they back down.
and they back down. And
Right.
and that's what happens when people stand up for their rights, no matter which party it is coming from. And I think, and that's something you gotta stand up for your rights. If your rights are being taken away, even if it's from your own party, it is important to stand up. It is easy in this day and age to think that you have no political efficacy,
Mhm.
that your vote doesn't matter, the your legislator will never read your email, yada yada and yada.
However, in this particular instance, with the abortion initiative, and the push to put abortion on the state ballot in November 2024, uh, we're seeing large numbers of Floridians come together and push this, get petition signatures, talk about this, make it a statewide issue, a national issue. We already know it is, and and abortion was the driving factor for many people during the 2022 midterms. Advocates of abortion rights are hoping the same for Florida. And seeing that now the courts have an opportunity to thwart their efforts, despite their advocacy, despite fighting back, despite being in the streets. Are we looking at the end of citizen led government, citizen run government, citizen involvement? If you have a court system that's going to say, this
Nah.
doesn't apply because it's not a single subject,
Yeah, no, if it's
it
not
doesn't meet this
so
criteria.
if it's not so unbelievably simple that there's no broad implication that there can't be additional implications, then well, our citizen-led government won't be gone. It won't be gone by any means. We will still be able to pass things. We will still be able to put on ballot referendums. However,
However,
it is harder to decide on the bigger issues. Also, that was a nice job saying however
Thank you
with
very
me.
much.
Good job predicting.
Oh, yes.
Those bigger issues are the things that voters are going to struggle to decide now.
And this is where the Republicans have been very smart in their own advocacy
Been very
and
smart.
understanding that it's not the governor's mansion, it's not the presidency, it's not the state legislatures, it's not Congress, it's the judiciary, it's
Yes.
those judges that are appointed, that are elected, that believe in the Republican agenda or aligned with it or allied with it,
And
is where the decisions are solidified.
DeSantis put the judges up there, most of them.
5 of the 7
5 of the 7
are DeSantis appointees.
and as prudent as any person can be, it is hard to not feel bias towards the person who put you there, no matter who it is who put you there, no matter who it is. You can exercise your independence the best you can, but you would have to account for that bias nonetheless.
Correct.
And who knows? Who knows? Maybe this session was a fluke. Maybe they're maybe they're finding it out. But I'm not convinced. We'll just have to see, of course.
Yes, indeed.
That seems to be the motto of the state these days. Wait and see what will happen.
And my final thought on this matter, this single issue requirement, I'm looking at very closely in how the Florida Supreme Court will decide on these various ballot initiatives. And also, the Supreme Court has heard in the past month briefs in regards to whether or not abortion is a right to privacy of self versus the privacy of information. I think that ruling will have implications moving forward, specifically allowing the 15-week abortion ban. And then if that decision affirms the 15-week abortion ban, that would trigger the new legislation of the 6-week abortion ban, which is theoretically a ban on abortion. And not too many people understand that that would also put restrictions on the abortion pill, which most abortions occur by the abortion pill, not by medical abortion. So there's a lot that the Florida Supreme Court is looking at that can have incredible implications before any decisions made in November 2024. The SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, they just began their new term and some really groovy stuff going on there. So the action is not with the governors or with state legislatures, is with these judiciaries.
Yeah, we live in the we live in the age of judicial activism. It happens on all levels, and I think we might experience it in some small amount. I'm very disappointed in this action. I think it shows a lack of confidence in the voters to decide issues for themselves. But you know what would make me happier, less disappointed, would be if you were to like, comment, and subscribe and share. Tell your friends and family about You Can't Make This Shit Up, except your grandma. Don't swear in front of your grandma. Have a great day, y'all.
Thank you.